Hello. Welcome to week 11's wrap up. We are slowly coming to the end of the semester. Slowly. Not quite there yet, obviously. But nonetheless, both exciting to finish something, and I'm sure you guys are going to be sad to not have these videos from this creepy looking office. Anyway, a couple of small updates. Number one, you all turned in your teaching philosophy. My model is to always get those back within a week. What I really intend to do is to put comments on them that hopefully help you in making this a professional document that you use and come back to. I know I put comments on your rough draft. So yeah, that's really, if you haven't figured out myself and my teaching philosophy, especially with you all who I think I trust are doing the work and engaging deeply, is not to give you gotcha grades or anything crazy. So if you have stress about your teaching philosophy grade, I would say let it go. I think that you will be rewarded for the work you put into it. How's that? Cool. Yeah. I had way too many professors in graduate school that were really elusive about grades, and I'm not. I want to reward the work that you put into it. I think that you guys all are working really hard for this class, and so I'm happy to celebrate what you do, and that's where I'm at with this. Small update about tomorrow. So remember I said we were going to have conferences over the next couple of days about annotated bibliographies. Turns out I have a really important professional development thing on Tuesday night that I can't get out of in any capacity. So I have Monday. And then the startling update is that I have Monday, but I don't have anyone to care for my children at the time. The good news is I don't want to cancel the conferences. What I'm going to do instead is hopefully you guys can have a little bit of grace with me. And what I'm going to do is tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon before the 3 to 6 hours, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, your time. Hang on. 5 to 8. Thank you. It's 3 to 6 my time. From 5 to 8 your time, 3 to 6 my time. So 5 to 8, just forget that I said my time. So tomorrow from 5 to 8, I will send out a Zoom room beforehand. Multiple people can enter those at once. So you can listen in while I'm talking to somebody else about their annotated bibliographies. That can be helpful. You do not have to show up to one of these. Maybe you're not in a spot. Maybe you spent 4, maybe like me, you had 4 spring breaks between different things and you're having a hard time catching up. Don't worry about it. That's fine. But the goal is that I'm here to help. So if you're at a spot in the annotated bibliography where you have questions or you want to share something with me, I'm happy to help. I will have 2 toddlers running around. So my apologies in advance. I am hopefully giving them a lot of activities to do so that they won't be too distracting, but nonetheless, if you pop in during that time frame, they might sit on my lap. What I'm envisioning is I'm guessing that honestly some of you either can't make the time or have decided that for whatever reason that you don't need the feedback right now. That's what I'm envisioning, is that I'm available, you drop in, I'm happy to be available, I'm excited to talk to you, but I'm not requiring it. So I'm envisioning a couple of you will probably pop in, and maybe I'm naive. If all of you pop in, that would be awesome. If you don't, that's fine too. Again, this is for you. I also can be available in a meeting at a different time. The small challenge is the time difference. So 3 to 6 is 5 to 8 your time for me, or 5 to 8 your time, so 3 to 6. And I am sometimes on kid pickup duty and stuff, and my significant other doesn't get home until 5 o'clock my time, which is too. So anyway, too much information. Nonetheless, tomorrow, 5 to 8, I will have little children with me. They will be distracted. Cool. So great. Another fun week discussion. I kind of raged a little bit about naming what we know last time. I gave you, I think, what I think is a pretty honest critique. I think I have a similar critique about genre theory, even though I also love it. So you'll hear that come out in what I have to say. But first of all, Andy asked awesome questions. I think he guided you guys. He gave you a lot of good angles to go, and you guys took it in really fun and exciting ways. So let's jump into it. So Anthony talked about, he thought that the genre awareness idea was to be the most valuable, and that it was great for one reason, because it constantly reiterates the idea that writing can be put into genres and is not just a single faceted thing. Although it might be obvious to us that writing takes many forms and has many uses in the world and in communication alone, however, students don't often see that. Do you guys remember your first year writing experience? Nobody told me what genres were. It wasn't like, oh, you could write this. It was literally like, here are 3 essays you need to write. And it wasn't genres. It was, there are purposes for essay. There's a persuasive essay. There's a definition essay. And there is some, I forget what the other one was. But that was the 3 essays we had to write. And so that was my experience teaching or taking first year writing. And it took me actually a long time, because throughout my English, I was a literature major in undergrad, and even in my master's, I only have 1 master's. In my master's, I was a literature major. I had always read different genres for sure, but I had never thought like I should write in different genres. And then I started teaching first year writing, and even then in 2007. We weren't really teaching genres that much. It was coming into its own a little bit. But as my time progressed in a rhetoric and composition PhD, and as my time progressed as a writing teacher, genres became like a huge thing. And it's like, duh, I get it. So I think I said to someone, there are textbooks now that are organized by genres, and that's becoming one of the more popular ways to organize textbooks. And that wasn't a thing like 10 years ago. It was definitely a movement, but it wasn't the biggest movement. And so for me, it's empowering to think, wow, somebody could have taught me how to write this genre, like Facebook posts or memos or explainer videos, right? Somebody could have taught me how to do that as opposed to write a definition essay. Yeah, so that's interesting. Aaron he said, let me start by suggesting that there's no writing that happens entirely outside of genre. I challenged him in a comment, and I said, Peter Elbow might disagree with you. And I think that that's one of the critiques of genre awareness and genre theory, is that it makes all writing be really kind of drilled down to the purpose, whereas I would imagine that the more creative facets or the more exploratory stuff, like I don't really know what this is yet, but I gotta get my thoughts down, it makes them not matter as much, which I think to some writing teachers who are really interested in process, not product, get a little bit like, I don't know, genre can be a little bit suspect here and there. And then I think the dirtier way that genre can be used, and not to say that everyone uses it, most people don't, but when administrators in college get a hold of the idea that like, oh, writing can be taught through genres, they simplify the teaching of writing, and so it makes for the dissemination of curriculum and the necessity that like, oh, teachers don't really matter, which we all know is not the case. But it makes for that idea to pass a little bit more, right? I personally believe teaching writing is a complex act. And even if I were to say like genre is my teaching philosophy, like I live by it and die by it, it's still a complex act, right? Even if I ask students to produce memos, what are they producing before they produce memos? So I do think that genre theory and in composition has to be definitely treated with what it is. It can be part of a larger process of writing, and genre is helpful to analyze and understand and practice in. But certainly we have to understand that when we sometimes adopt genre theory, is that some people actually really use that as a tool to focus on the end product and not the process sometimes. So yeah. Lori talked about how Bazerman describes many typical academic course texts to illustrate how they become genre sets within genre systems, which are part of systems of human activity. And Lori said that her practical takeaway is to continue writing syllabi, assignments, and other course texts with clarity and warmth from the perspective of a teacher coach with an inclusive, student learning centered plan focused on specific worthwhile goals. Yeah, I think that's actually really interesting to think about how the writing that you do as a professor for the class conditions the tone for the class. I think nowhere is this more of a thing than the online writing class. So you all, obviously completely online classes, I always make sure I include a lot of video component because I need you to see me as a person, and I like to make you guys create video component too, so that I can see you as a person. Otherwise, we're just behind these texts, and I don't love that. But also, online classes make you write more, but it also makes me write more, and I start to think about what my syllabus looks like and how it reads and which way does it read. And sometimes that can get really daunting, and it seems also like, oh, hey, how do I also create this warm environment through the different texts I create for this class? And that's that's like a triple layer challenge in an online writing class. And I don't think everyone always does it perfect, but there's an awareness that some of those genres can be conscriptive or prescriptive. Austin says that he thinks the most important tool that a composition instructor can teach students is the ability to think situationally. And he talks about how that's transferable to different situations. I completely agree. I think genres help us with that too. I think that's where he's going with that too, or that's where he's thinking about it. But yeah, is that we think about what's happening situationally and how do we respond to it. Michelle writes that it's important that students see the usefulness and influence of all literature. This emphasizes the power the writer has in the community around them. As the chapter states, texts as simple as nutritional information and baby shower invitations become important communal texts that have ethnologic influence. However, I am most comfortable with teaching genre critique as it helps students discern the ideological import of genres. I think that's really interesting to think about. Have students think about, especially students who aren't conditioned or ready to write within genres. I think that can be an important thing for, I know a couple of you who teach high school have the challenge of your curriculum isn't writing heavy. It looks more reading heavy. And I think that that's one of the challenges is how do you get them to be genre aware without doing a lot of writing? And I think that that's the one way is that you have genre critique is like, oh, so what is a short story? Like, this is what this recognizable short story looks like, but how has this been influenced over time and by cultures and things like that? So yeah. Ethan said his biggest pedagogical takeaway is writing is performative. Before, I would have never thought of my text as performing something. As I read the chapter, everything made sense. Any type of writing, no matter how small, is performative in nature. I have my first year writing students, like the first thing they do is to talk about what kind of writing they do every day and what kind of action that writing enables. I don't use the same language, but they get really into it makes them realize that, like, whoa, email really is writing. Whereas most of them do a ton of writing all day and they don't recognize it as writing. And I think for them it actually adds to their confidence in the class, because I'm like, we're going to improve your everyday writing. And then I'm saying, you have an email. Sorry, bad Oprah joke. Anyway, yeah. Christina talked about experimenting with other genres of writing in her classes, and would love to do a multimodal writing project. But she talked about the balance between the actual curriculum and feeling like you have so much to do. And she teaches basic writers. So that's definitely an overwhelming feeling. And I get that. So that's tough to think about. I think that I struggle with that sometimes too, is shifting from being like, I want to do the coolest, most awesome thing in class that I think is amazing. Like, we're going to do blogging or we're going to record videos. But at the same time, I'm like, but I need to teach you how to write a paragraph too. And so I think I'm constantly struggling with that. I don't know that I've gotten a right balance. I also think it's me kind of riding my own waves and my own discomfort in areas of teaching. And I have to sit with it myself and just let it be sometimes. And that's what I've noticed over the years of teaching. But one of the other strategies that has helped me is taking on a smaller project. So in a class where you think like this, that you've envisioned like a genre aware assignment, but it's like something that spans all semester and it's super intense and it completely changes the makeup of your class. Don't do that. Do something small. Have your students write tweets. None of them know what that is. And it teaches so much. Have your students write Facebook posts. Have your students write Instagram posts. You're an influencer for Patagonia, right? And give them like little weird situations. Those things, like, that's a really cool in-class activity. And they can think about that. And that's genre, and that's situation, and that's rhetorical awareness. And, you know, you can make it a little bit of design and all that. And they can discuss the different choices they make and why they made it. And that, I think, the social media stuff, because either, and this is what I found with some of my students, either they are very self-aware on social media or they are not at all. So either they are very aware of who their audience is, they're posting things and checking back to see who likes it, or they're not aware at all. And I hate to say that I think it just varies student to student based on their own engagement with social media and their relationship to the people who are on it. But getting them to think of it, like, so on one hand, you're getting the students who aren't thinking of the audience behind social media to start think of the audience behind social media. On the other hand, the students who are very aware of the audience on social media, you're getting them to think about, okay, well, you're aware of the audience. What are you going to do with that audience? So yeah. Allie talked about teaching particular genres to 9th and 10th graders and having very little time for writing, so she was one of the people who mentioned that. But she talked about the different types of genres, so fictional literature unit, graphic novel unit, nonfiction unit, drama, poetry, and they're taught about elements of genre. But she said that her school's moving towards more of a teaching genre awareness approach. which could be interesting because teaching genre awareness is definitely, it's not teaching particular genres. I would say it's a little more situational, which is interesting. Ari talked about Bazerman's text being interesting in a way that it made her realize how conditioned we are to genre and how it affects our interactions with writing and communication on a daily basis. Is that through our teaching we can help shift, change, or condition these different genre stereotypes which exist around us all. So one fun assignment you could have is like have your students imagine writing in the future and to explain how, like, what genres would be exist. Like, that's just a fun discussion with them. Like, it's the year 2060. What genres of writing still exist? What genres of writing have died off? And what genres of writing are new? I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to have with your students, because I do think that things, write the 5-paragraph essay, for example. Some of you, as high school teachers, see it as a completely valuable tool. Other people see it as a space to really kind of open up and do something new in. But the question being is, like, what is that genre stereotype, and how do we learn through that genre, and how do we move past it? You'll hear John Warner in our last book that we read for this class really kind of rail against the 5-paragraph essay. He has this whole thing in the beginning about it being training wheels. So that's an interesting thing to think about, how we're conditioned through that genre stereotype and how that can in turn condition later writing. So I know some of you will probably you'll probably have pretty hot takes on that. So Dana talked about that the writing assignment doesn't cross curriculum or discipline, but that having these sort of cross-curricular portfolios, that there are so much potential to send students out there for future writing, but logistically it gets messy. And I kind of wrote back to her to talk about, so they're digital portfolios, right? And if, say for instance, seniors in college have had to build this digital portfolio and they start doing it for all the classes that they do some writing for, their comp class, but maybe they write a history paper, maybe they write an accounting paper, maybe they write a marketing paper, and all of that stuff is within the portfolio. And they have these cross-discipline portfolios that show the range of their work. Awesome. But the rub would be, like, how do we get professors in other disciplines to assign and use these tools? And at ASU, at least, it is by buying into the software. It's not, like, which is actually kind of a crappy way to do it, as opposed to having, like, writing teachers discuss the importance of, upper division writing classes and coming into the classrooms to help, and forming partnerships with other divisions. We just were the proving ground for a digital portfolio software that the university bought into for us to use, but then saw the value in making it available to other units and selling them heavily on using it. So we don't have any role in crossing the disciplines, but we were kind of the lab to start it, so to speak. But yeah, I do think that the role is that the writing programs becomes kind of a steward for this, and that they take a central leadership role in that. A lot of times the writing in the disciplines, whether it's a course or it is actually a discipline that needs a writing specific course, they'll oftentimes turn to the writing programs to do the service of that course. So for my department, it is business writing. We teach business writing. The business college does not. So let's see. Amy talking about word choice being an important part of writing, and that Bazerman, it's a great quote, because words are so thin and frail, are such thin and frail communicators. Writers must work hard to make them do the best they can do. I love that quote. And I think she talked about like this sort of precision assignment that she does. And some of those are my favorites because students are so used to getting to 10 pages that if you give them one page and say, you have to complete all these things and you can't put fluff, that actually can become really difficult and limiting, but it's an excellent exercise in the precision game. And then let's see, Ashley talked about liking the third author's suggestion to deal with issues that may arise when the teacher or student may not understand text in the same way, by gathering information not just about text but about other people's understandings of them. And I think that's a great point is writing classes can be our spaces to not see eye to eye on stuff. So whether you don't see eye to eye with an author, right, you're reading, maybe it's a novel that your students are reading and like some of them really get it and some of them don't. Maybe it's another student's paper, like you have students write about really hot and burning issues and one of the students is writing about, abortion rights and the other person is writing about pro-life, and those students are like, gosh, we don't get each other at all. Making them understand not just the text, but really kind of understand where each other are coming to them and how they're understanding these different issues. I think that's really important and interesting, and it's a good like critical thing. I think that if our writing classes could become these really fun contact zone spaces where we ask students to listen to each other and really take their ideas and thoughts and digest them, I think that could be really interesting. I don't know that any of us are paid enough to do that work in this environment because it's really tough people are having a really hard time to listen to each other, but it's definitely good work. So awesome. Anyway, sorry I stumbled through the beginning of the video. I haven't had enough sleep. I had a lot of deadlines this week, but I am excited for a good night's sleep and what's to come this week. So 5 to 8 your time, I will send you out a Zoom Hangouts link beforehand. You may enter at your own convenience. If by 7:30 I don't see any, I might end things early. So if you were like, I plan on getting in the Hangout or the Zoom room at 7:50, will you just send me an email and say, hey, can you just make sure that you don't turn off the chat room early? I'm fine to keep it open, but if I haven't seen anyone for a while, I might close it down in the 7:30 hour, but like I said, I'm definitely happy to be there. Just send me an email. So awesome. Thank you all very much and have a good day, and I will see some of you tomorrow.